Hello and welcome to Filmmaking 101 with braiding images. In this video, we'll be going through basic camera exposure. Camera exposure is how bright or dark your image is, and is one of the most important things to understand in order to get a good shot. Good exposure is where the scene looks natural and all the details are visible. Overexposure is where the image is too bright, and brighter parts of the image may turn to pure white. Underexposure is where the image is too dark, and darker parts of the image may turn to pure black. Unlike many other parts of filmmaking, camera exposure is almost purely a technical aspect, and is rarely used for creative effect. Over or underexposure is almost always considered a mistake, so it's important to get exposure right. Exposure is controlled by three settings in the camera: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. These are sometimes known as the exposure triangle, because you have to balance the three settings together in order to get good exposure. Aperture is how much light is being let through the camera lens. It's controlled by an aperture which opens or closes to increase or reduce the amount of light. When the aperture is open or wide, lots of light is being let through. However, having the aperture open also reduces the depth of field of your shot. That is, the amount of shot that is sharp. This means that whilst your main character may be sharp, the background behind them may be completely blurry, although sometimes this might be the look that you're after. Shutter speed is how long the light is allowed to be recorded by the camera's sensor. It's called shutter speed because on some cameras it's controlled by a mechanical shutter, which opens and closes, much like opening and closing a pair of curtains to let light into your room. The smaller amount of time the shutter's open for, the less light is let onto the sensor, and the darker the image will be. Longer shutter speeds will let more light in, but can also produce more motion blur if the subject moves in your scene. ISO is how sensitive your camera sensor is to light. A low ISO means it will take a lot more light for the sensor to react, whereas a high ISO means your camera will be able to see even without much light hitting the sensor. However, a higher ISO also increases the amount of noise in your image, which can look bad. So let's recap the three main ways to control your camera's exposure: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. An image which is too bright is called overexposed, and an image which is too dark is called underexposed. Thanks for watching, and check out our other videos for more Filmmaking 101 tips.